You are listening to Comedy Club for Kids presents Radio Nonsense, Radio Nonsense, Radio Nonsense, Radio Nonsense, Radio Nonsense. I have had a rabbit infestation. There's bunny rabbits everywhere. That reminds me. How do you catch a rabbit again? You go rabbit! Wait, no, don't jump on my house. No, giant rabbits! Thanks so much to Hewell for that intro and very, very funny joke, even though now, obviously, as you heard, Comedy Club for Kids HQ is entirely covered in giant rabbits. I can't even begin to imagine. Oh, wait. Rabbits really don't make much noise, do they? Brilliant. In which case, I guess everything's kind of normal. Welcome to Radio Nonsense, the official Comedy Club for Kids podcast that is suitable for all ages from 2 and everything in between. I'm Tiernan, and wow, yeah, I mean, I just thought giant rabbits would be terrible, but so far it's just really, really fluffy in here right now, which is quite nice. There's no noise. They're all very calm. Most of them seem to be asleep. I don't really know a lot about rabbits. I don't know if you do. I know they've got big ears, and they definitely aren't ducks. And I don't think any of them work in my local supermarket. But otherwise, I've got no real idea about any of them. Linda, do you know anything about rabbits, Linda? No, I guess they're a mystery to her too. I'm going to look up some rabbit facts. That is probably the sensible thing to do. Oh, here we go. Fact 1. Rabbits can travel at light speed all over the universe, but they mostly can't be bothered. Oh, good fact. I didn't know that at all. Fact 2. Every third rabbit you meet is called Clive. Wow, that is a lot of Clives. There's absolutely loads of these facts. I can't believe it. I had no idea there was so much stuff about rabbits. Fact 3. If you look at a rabbit while standing on your head, it will still look like it's the right way up because they have magic powers that mess with your eyes and brains. Amazing. What's the next one? Fact 4. Rabbits love potatoes that are painted yellow more than they like lemons. Wow, this is unbelievable. This list has hundreds and thousands and possibly even billions of facts on it. I had better read all of them to make sure that I know absolutely everything about these giant bunnies if they are going to live here at Comedy Club for Kids HQ. But before I do, there's actually some mail this week. Hooray! First in the mailbag is this review from Laughing Ninja's 14th cousin. And it is so great that all of Laughing Ninja's extended family listen to this show. And I always hope that from our listeners, that it's not just you that's listening. It's also your siblings and your great-grandparents and your great-great-grandparents and your great-great-great-great-great-great-great-great-great-great-grandparents and their ancestors and their ancient ancestors. I hope everyone that's in your family tunes in. So Laughing Ninja's 14 cousin, they say, use smell Sigma. I was wondering, what's your favourite soup? I love the babooga flavoured poopcorn flavoured not so instant ramen soup from the restaurant across the street. What's yours? Is it fish? Well, good question, Laughing Ninja's 14th cousin. I think, actually thinking about it, my favourite soup is peanut butter. Yes, it is a soup. Think about it. It's a kind of liquid. It's a kind of food. What's soup? Soup's a kind of liquid. It's a kind of food. Put peanut butter in a bowl, heat it up, eat it with bread. It's soup. It's definitely soup. Don't at me. Next up in the mailbag, there's this review from Joss the Boss, who's written again to the show to say, please read this again, Flublub. I'm so shocked you read out my comment. Also, I like the intros you read out for the people who come on the podcast. Could you do one for drumroll, please? Joss the Boss. Bye. P.S. Your paycheck is coming. Wow. Well, of course I read out your comment, Joss the Boss. But obviously I will only do it the once, and I will not be reading out any more of your comments, not even this one. I will do a drumroll please intro. Listen out for it with a future guest, and thank you for suggesting a different way to do that. If any of you other listeners have suggestions for that, please do send those in too. Thank you for sending the paycheck as well, Just the Boss. I will keep an eye out for it, and then I'll hopefully use it to buy something really nice, like maybe a watermelon someone's drawn a face on, or maybe even sort of a packet of aphids. Anyway, I just hope that the rabbits don't eat the paycheck when it arrives before I get to it. And lastly, Ava in New Zealand, so it's New Zealand, not the old Zealand, she sent in this joke. What do you call a dragon with no wings and no horns? Answer, a crocodile. I love it. I love it. Very well done. Thank you, Ava, for that brilliant joke. But also, whoa, are crocodiles just rubbish dragons? Does living in water stop them breathing fire all the time? They must be so angry about it. That's probably why they go around sort of biting everything. But I have to say I'm quite pleased crocodiles can't fly, because that would be terrifying. Not even the idea that they might fly towards you and eat you. More that, crocodiles go really still sometimes, so they could just fall out of the sky and land on your head. Ouch. Thanks so much, Ava. Right, quick, other rabbit fact for you listeners. Rabbit fact number 87.5. Rabbits have never seen Despicable Me 2. How weird. Of course, if any of you listeners either have rabbit facts that you want me to know, or you have a question that you need to have answered, please do ask your mumblefuts, sorry, I mean grown-ups, to help you email me at podcast@comedyclub4kids.co.uk. Or you can review the show on any of the podcast places, or leave a message on the Spotify Q&A. Please also check out comedyclubforkids.co.uk, as we have loads and loads of live shows all the time, and make sure that you tell anyone that you know, your teacher, the person who delivers trumpets, that bee you saw yesterday, to all tune into Radio Nonsense and give it a listen too. Right, I'm going to learn as much as I can about rabbits. If they're going to be living here, I'd better do that. While I check out all these rabbit facts, you listen to this most importantest bit.
These rabbits actually chase visitors.
Joining me on Radio Nonsense today, it is Katie and Matthew, Peasoup Comedy, aka Matthew and Katie, who refuse to count higher than 80, aka K-Mats PCOM, the world's only professional arena touring silent readers, or as all of our air ventilation listeners know you, But, of course, Katie and Matthew, you are very well known for the time you got on the wrong bus and ended up 500 years in the past, for your hit single Beans Means Kicks, where you just kicked beanbags for 7 minutes and recorded the sound, and most famously for your incredibly hard work to extend the spring onion universe by making summer, autumn and winter onions as well. Listen, you two, it's such a joy to have you on the show. How are you doing?
Wow. Thank you so much. It is a pleasure to be here. We normally just get sort of recognized for our comedy, and it's really nice to actually finally be recognized for our Spring Onion work, our prog music of kicking beam. We're into prog. We're very into prog.
Yeah.
I think we're quite as a group.
And the Spring Onion thing, that was such a they were all really. It was a revolution.
Yes.
You know. What had previously been just spring onions, now winter, summer, all these things. It's just really, it's amazing to have been part of that, isn't it, Matthew?
I will say that obviously spring, a time of rejuvenation, a time of life, winter, a time of sort of decay, winter onions, I wouldn't recommend them, but as a sort of thought exercise, I think is really interesting. But again, as a flavour, really quite promising.
I tell you what you can do. You can actually dry them and make them into Christmas tree decorations.
That's a lovely idea. Because I have to say that up until you did that, up until your brilliant extending of the Spring Onioniverse, I believe it's known as, isn't it? I did only eat onions in spring. I really felt like the rest of the year, often I'd be really pining for an onion, even wanting some cheese and an onion crisp, but there just wasn't any, and it's really changed my life. I mean, now pretty much I just eat onions all summer, onions all autumn. I'm 90% onion most of the year, and that's made a real difference to my life, particularly socially. Most people won't come near me because of the smell, but I really thank you for it.
You're so welcome, and you're welcome to all the listeners. You're welcome for the onions. You're welcome.
You're welcome for making onions a year-round allium.
Wow. Oh, yes. You see, that's how I know you're professionals. That's how because I forget that allium means, I always think that's just a noise you make like when you get on a horse or something like allium, or something like that, but it's not, is it? It means
well, onion, that's where the word came from.
Right.
That's where the word came from, actually, because when you were climbing a horse, obviously back in the day, most horse based professions were onion sellers, garlic sellers,
Right,
leek
right.
sellers. So you'd often hear you would call them alliums, as in the people who sell those kinds of food.
Right.
So you say, "Oh, there's the alliums," and you'd hear them go, "Allium." You know?
And I'll tell you how we know that as well is because we did accidentally go back 500
Yes.
years. As you mentioned, thank you for bringing that up because actually it was just so illuminating because we learned where all these words come from. Allium, you know, the getting and the connection with the onions. Yeah. What else did we find out? We found out that frogs. It actually comes from the French word frog.
Wow.
Yeah.
You know, like it comes from the word. It comes from actually being winded by a frog.
Yeah.
So like being punched by a frog, you go frog, and that's what's ended up in the English language.
Wow.
Yeah.
As
Can I
frog.
ask? So at that time, 500 odd years ago, were frogs regularly winding people? Is that something that you sort of peer into close to a pond, and next thing you know, a frog's sort of punched you in the tummy?
Yeah, well, similar to the taming of wolves into dogs, frogs, obviously rhyming with dogs, 500 years ago were quite well, they were aggressive,
Right.
they were very territorial, they were about as big as, I want to say, a miniature pony, like a toy pony.
Wow.
They were really
Yeah.
big, and they yes, they had these sort of big clobbering fists that they would use to wind you as you walked past.
When they were that big, sorry,
but,
how did they fit in the pond?
well,
Ponds were
Right,
bigger then.
right,
Ponds
right,
were
got it,
bigger
got it, got it.
then. You see, we think of because humans have
Yeah.
gotten bigger over the course. You know, we're taller than our. You know, you go to those little Tudor houses and they've got tiny little doorways, and you're like, oh, how did they fit through there? And it's because they were
Right.
smaller. But actually, other species and other parts of nature, they've actually gone the other way. They were bigger, and now they've gotten smaller.
Wow.
And I know, like Charles Darwin might have something to say about this, but that, you know, I don't know why that happens. We don't know. It's a mystery.
Yeah.
It's
That
a
is
mystery.
odd, isn't it?
Now, I will take this moment to say something and actually to make an apology.
Right. Okay.
Katie and I, the bus we were getting on was to go to do a set at Live at the Apollo.
Right.
It was really going to be our big time, and we thought, you know, we'll because this is the start of our fame, we'll be eco-conscious, we'll get the bus, we won't drive in. And that was ultimately our mistake, because what we thought was the 87 to Live at the Apollo, the direct line.
Yes, yeah, of course. Yeah, famous. Yeah.
Was actually the 87 direct line 500 years ago.
Right, that's awkward. But did you then, you know, because obviously Live at the Apollo now is a very big, very famous comedy show. 500 years ago, was it very small? Did you have to go and perform on a very small stage instead?
Yes. Yeah, we actually came across the first Live at the Apollo show.
Wow.
Which was actually, unfortunately, just sort of a man on a street corner shouting about his, you know,
and there was he was doing this, he was going ah.
Wow.
And that was it. You know, it was like, because it was more of a musical performance back then, like stand-ups, you know, sort of more of a modern thing. So it was more musical, more rhythmic, as I demonstrated.
Yeah,
sounds quite nice.
And the Apollo was not a theatre; it was actually a shop called the Apollo that sold various astronomy knickknacks.
Sure.
Sort of tarot cards, crystals, things of that nature. It's the Apollo.
Incense.
Yes,
wow.
Yeah.
It
was a hippie shop.
Because normally those shops also have things that, like, we can tell your future, and it must have been quite interesting to go into the past and then go to a shop like that, were you able to sort of say, actually, in the future, we get on the wrong bus?
And I'll tell you what, that would have been incredibly useful the morning of the show at the modern day Apollo.
Yes.
But
Yeah.
they just said, yeah, you shouldn't get on the 87. It's actually the 105 that you should get on. That's the direct line to the Apollo.
That's true. I mean, but and I don't want to get too complicated. I'm sure many of our listeners who are ranged from age minus sort of 12 to 406, I'm sure they're very aware of all the complications of time travel. But you going into the past to go into one of those shops, did that change anything in the future for when you came back? And then were still meant to be on. Did you come back at the same time, or had you missed the show by that point?
Yeah. Well, when we came back, we were obviously now no longer universally, and I do mean in the entire universe, we were no longer universally recognized as.
Yeah, that was like a blip in the timeline. So we were actually about to be like unimaginably famous.
Yeah.
Unimaginably famous. Like imagine how famous for example the Beatles were. Imagine it. Just imagine it in your head now.
You mean the band, you don't mean the insect, right? Right,
the Beatles,
sure. Just double checking. Yeah,
yeah, the Beatles, the band, they're this famous, and then we were going to be like this famous. Which is, if for those at home, I'm doing a gesture with my hands where I'm sort of like expanding my hands to make them really big to just show how famous exactly we were going to be. So it's a blip in time, but you know what? I think me and Matthew like a challenge. Peasoup, we like a challenge, and we just have to find another blip in the timeline that will take us to live at the Apollo.
The thing is about Katie and I is we're always looking for blips in the timeline.
Sure. That's a useful thing to do and a good way to spend your time.
We were walking.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah,
exactly. We were walking down the street the other day. We were in Camden. We just done that gig at the Camden Comedy Club, which was a lot of fun. And we were walking down the street back to the tube station, and I just spotted something out the corner of my eye, and I was like, Matthew, look. But don't look right at it. Look at it with your periphery. You can't look at the thing is with the blip at the timeline. You can't look at it. You can't look at it straight on. You have to look at it through the corner of your eye. And so you looked at it. So we stopped. We looked the other way, but then looked with our periphery back at it. And we went, "That's Matthew. You know what that is, don't you?" And Matthew said,
"Blip of the timeline."
Wow,
it's a blip in the timeline. And then it had gone. It just gone. Because we'd spot you sometimes with a blip in the time. It's like a rainbow. If you point at a rainbow, it goes away, doesn't it? If you point at it. So if you look head on at a blip in the timeline, it's
quite
gone.
late, because I thought I'd gone through a blip in time, because I woke up on a Saturday and it was rainy and I sort of felt a bit grumpy, and then I'd sort of popped to the shops, and then next thing I remember, I woke up and it was a bit rainy and I felt a bit grumpy, and I thought, well, I've clearly gone through a blip in the timeline. I've ended up in the same day. Turns out, no, that was just the Sunday. It was just a weekend. So
it's easy to mistake. Sometimes like a normal, sometimes you take a nap, like you say, it could be a nap, it could be like this a message popping up on your phone, it could be something, and actually you think, was it a blip, and it turns out it was just your normal life. It's easily
have you ever
done
have you ever sort of seen or gone through a blip where things have really changed, so you've come back and sort of, I don't know, ducks are wearing hats, or lions drive buses, or something really strange has happened when you've come back?
I once Matthew wasn't with me at the time, but I once went through a blip where foxes were running the local councils.
That's interesting.
And they were also running, and there was also all the mayor. So you got the mayor of London, you got the mayor of I think Liverpool has a mayor. All the mayors around the country. Everything else was normal, but the mayors were foxes, and the local councils were run by foxes.
Wow. Can I check then? Because I was going to say, I bet did they bother having any bin collections, or did they just sort of leave it out because they like going through the rubbish?
Yeah, bin collection cancelled.
Right. That's what I thought.
Like completely cancelled. So it was just like mountains of this rubbish. But that was the only thing that changed, schools running as normal, hospitals, pretty much running as normal. Apart from the bin collections. It was quite messy. It was messy, to say the least.
I actually went through a different blip of the timeline without you there, Casey. And it was quite frightening, actually. I remember there was a version of you, Katie, but it wasn't the real you.
Oh, no.
And you were entirely made out of a pea, like a garden pea.
Wow.
You were made out of the like pea fibers, and I was also made out of garden pea. And there was this large chef, towering maybe about 50 to 100 feet tall, chasing both of us with a ladle, saying, get in my soup, get in my soup.
Wow.
And this actually might have been a nightmare that I had.
Right. It's hard to tell. It's hard to tell.
Oh.
It's because, I mean, I still, and again, I'm not an expert like you two are, but I still understand that if you go to another timeline universe and you see a version of yourself that isn't like that, they're not good. If they're an evil version of yourself, they do have a mustache. That is still the rule, isn't it?
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. And that's when you see people in this timeline that have mustaches. Are they the evil version of a good person that's in another timeline? Is that how that? Right.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Most definitely. Yeah. It's not, and that's not to say that all people with mustaches are evil, but most of them are. Yeah. Like the vast majority.
Yes, right. That's what.
But the thing is,
yeah.
If you are the good version of you and you do have a mustache, the evil version will have a full goatee.
Wow. Okay.
Yes,
it sort of goes up in levels across the different timelines. So it's quite a complex sort of, it's a complex thing. But basically in this timeline, if you do see someone with a mustache, like they might well be evil, or that they might not be, and the person, their doppelganger in another timeline with the goatee is more evil up the. It's a spectrum of evil.
So I've got a beard. Would my evil doppelganger? I mean, this is me assuming I'm the good version. I might not be, but assuming I am, would my evil version have would they just be entirely covered in hair, like a sort of fur ball, or like a bear?
Yeah. And the beard would actually be all the way down.
Okay.
Like all the way down.
Yeah. So it goes clean shaven, mustache, goatee, full beard, then just hair everywhere, and then finally wasp.
Wow. Oh no. Clearly the worst version of anyone. Yeah.
And then obviously you have wasps, and then wasps with mustaches.
Whoa.
Wasps with goatee.
That's the most terrifying evil. I hope you haven't encountered anything.
Yeah, so if you ever see if you ever see a wasp with a long beard, just avoid.
Really.
Yeah, just avoid. Ideally move countries, move to another country.
Wow. Yeah. But then
ASAP.
Yeah.
It's very scary. Well, thank you. This is already proving to be a very educational, very informative podcast. Thank you so much, both of you, for joining me, despite everything you've got going on right now. I have been sent in a question from a listener, and I think you two are the people that can answer it. And I, especially based on the expertise we've already heard. But I do have a couple of admin questions I need to ask you first. How do you find admin? Are you okay with it?
Yeah.
Wow.
Hot. I love admin. Matthew, not so much.
Oh dear.
Maybe.
Okay.
I have there's a word for it, bureaucraphobia.
Oh,
wow. It's a fear of admin. I can't look at a form without sort of getting nervous sweats, but I think it'll be okay.
Right.
I tend to do the admin for Matthew wherever I can. And in return, he does all my laundry.
That's nice.
So
I love laundry.
Katie, can I ask, when you fill in a form for Matthew, do you fill it in with his details, or do you just put your own name in it?
It tends to be mine.
Sure.
Yeah, but it doesn't matter because we're essentially the same entity.
Right.
So.
Yeah, at this point, I am Katie.
Right. Sure, got it.
Yeah.
That makes it easy. How does that work for sort of catching a plane or or anything like that? Do you just hand over the same passport twice, or?
Yeah, well, our passport photo is a sort of you know that there's that painting of that Amish couple.
Yes, yeah.
It's just like them both looking very stern. It's just that, and
Right.
I just say, it's I'm the one on the right.
Nice.
We're both Panther. So
That's
yeah.
great. That's great. That sounds very time saving. Actually, I wish more people thought of that. That's fantastic. Well, listen, I mean,
Yeah.
Matthew, I hope this is a comfort to you that there's no forms. It's just going to be 2 questions. If, however, they are
Okay.
both, too much for you, then obviously, Katie, if you just lead where you need to. I think question 2 is harder. I'm going to put that out there, but we'll see. We'll see when we get to it. Question 1, however, to whichever of you would like to take this, is just what is this?
It's a whole tapestry of lemons, that I've actually created myself with the help of my squirrels. And what's unique about it is that it's what it's about is what's within, so there's a lot of feelings involved in it. There's a lot of actual stomach juices involved in it.
Right.
So it's actually what's within, both emotionally and physically. So yeah, lemons are a great thing to work with. If anyone at home wants to create artwork with lemons, it's a medium you can really, it's very dynamic, very it's very, you can do also very flexible, very, you
because
can
I was
do all
going to
sorts
say
of
what
things with
I
it.
do like about this. I mean, I'm pleased you've cleared up what it is. I did find it interesting. It smelt lemony, but it also smelt sort of stomach acidy, and it was a bit like, it's a bit like when someone uses lemon cleaning fluid because someone else has been sick, and it's that sort of weird smell that's a bit lemony but mostly disgusting.
Yeah.
And that's exactly it. You're smelling it and you're like, is it nice or is it not?
Yeah.
Like it, and that isn't that a reflection of the human condition?
Yes, it is. Wow. Wow.
Yeah. That's a question that drives a lot of your art, isn't it? Is it nice or is it not?
Yeah. It's that's, some people say, it's got to be you've got to have that as an artist, a passionate reaction to your own work. And and is it nice, is it not, is it lemon, is it sick? It's like that really, so that just like sums it up, doesn't it?
Yeah. Is it lemon or is it sick? That's art right there. I think that's something. Do you get it displayed in many galleries? Are they willing to put it up, or?
Yeah, so it tends to be squirrel galleries, because they're the ones who are like the main clients of this type of work. They have a real interest in smell-based work, and a lot of them actually invest serious amounts of money in smell-based work. So the galleries that I tend to get bookings at tend to be squirrel-led galleries.
Yeah, we should say it as well, because you seem just slightly confused. We should say that we went to a blip in the timeline where squirrels really just ran the art world.
Right. Okay.
They were, so that's why after returning from that blip, Katie has been so smell led and squirrel led in her life.
I see. Can I ask, do they put the artwork up, or do they bury it and wait till the winter?
Yeah, the like you say, so very much the second one, in that it's like they're underground galleries. So and what they do is they bury them as you'd expect, and then what they do is they move them. They're still underground. They move them into like the gallery space after they've had like a year's. It's like wine.
Right, sure, yeah.
You know how wine, they put in barrels to mature the wine. So they mature the artworks over about a year, between a year and 2 years, usually, depending on what the art form's made from. Lemons, you probably expect lemons to actually only take 9 months, because they mature very quickly. So They mature very quickly. And then they're moved into the underground gallery space where they're open to the public for squirrels.
Wow.
And if I could add another accolade that we missed at the start for Katie. Kate was actually the first, had the first painting in a squirrel gallery not to be painted on an acorn.
Wow.
She was the first person to really break the mold and paint on canvas.
That is big.
Yeah.
Can I ask, and this is just something, we don't need to dwell on much, but the regular listeners to this show are very aware of a time when I thought I'd bought a lemon, but it was actually a potato painted yellow, and I had to be on the phone to Lemons R Us for quite some time, and it turns out it's a regular problem. I just wanted to check if you had, where you source your lemons from, and if you've had any problems like that.
Yeah, so Lemons R Us are, the general go-to, aren't they? There's sort of like the obvious choice.
Standard.
I also but there's a more alternative one coming through, but they're a bit of a smaller player. They haven't got stores everywhere, but they're just called Lemons.
Easy, yeah.
And they've got a shop in Shoreditch, but they've also got some popping up around the country. They've got one in Birmingham now, and they've also got another one in Sheffield, and they've got one in Scotland as well. So if anyone's looking to source alternative lemons, look for Lemons.
Is that got an S at the end or a Z at the end? Is that Lemons? Or...
It's Lemons, Lemons.
Nice.
So like lovely. 3 S's at the end.
Well, that's really helpful. Very helpful information. Thank you very much. Thank you very much for answering the question. I'm fascinated by the art, and hopefully I will at some point accidentally dig some up. Second question, see which one of you wants to take this. This is tricky. If you need to take time over it, you just go for it. But Katie and Matthew, would you rather only be able to say the word "hey" or only be able to make the noise "huh"?
That's really interesting. That's I have an answer.
Okay.
And just based on gut feeling, I, in my daily life, want to be approachable. I want to be fun and friendly. And I think if I just went around saying, hey,
oh, yeah,
I think that is quite fun. But I also think it's versatile. Because if someone maybe has wronged you in some way, I think then you can maybe approach them, and instead of a nice friendly hey, you can say, hey.
Wow, yeah,
yeah, and it really says everything.
That's nice. That's really nice. So you're not, you wouldn't think that people would approach you if you went around going, huh? Like, you don't think they'd come and talk to you if that was the noise you made. What about geese? You don't think you'd be friendly with some geese?
I love geese. I love all kinds of geese. But I do think that, I mean, some of my best friends are geese.
Sure.
But
would you say boo to them? Would you say boo to your friends, or you're not that close?
Yeah, well, when I say friends, we're more acquaintances.
Right, sure. Okay, so you wouldn't say boo to those geese. Yeah, that's fair. Yeah.
I wouldn't say boo to those geese, no.
I've got a goose fact here from a recent experience with geese. Right. It's actually not possible as a human to be friends with a goose. And I say that's obviously sounds like a really negative thing to say, because like most species you can be, but geese are incredibly territorial. Right. And actually they're not even friends with other geese. So it's like, if you're coming in as a human, like, I want to be a friend, they're like, I don't really know what a friend is. Now, I say that from my own personal experience. If there's anyone out there who can prove otherwise, maybe, I don't know, maybe there are people out there who have befriended geese. And I'm really happy to hear from those people, because I'd like to have a positive, you want to have the good news stories as well as the bad news stories. So I'd like to hear the good news stories from out there. Yeah. If anyone wants to get in touch with us with their about their goose friendship stories, human goose friendship stories, I'm available. Yeah. I'm all ears.
I think what I should have said, I think friends was a misnomer. Sure. The geese and I are more sort of like workplace colleagues.
Sure.
Sometimes we go out for sort of social events. We go like bowling, and we go for hikes, and
That's nice. Yeah.
we go rowboating, like work colleagues.
Am I right in thinking then, if the only noise you could make was a sort of honk, would they almost think you were mocking them?
That's what I worry about.
Yeah, I can see that.
What I worry about.
That's a real concern, isn't it? Because you don't if that's the only noise you can make, then you can't explain, oh, I'm actually just interacting with you. Because you haven't got any other words. So whereas hey is, I didn't do that right, sorry. Hey, that's right, isn't it? Then you've got a lot of options with that, as Matthew said. I think like sky's the limit, you know.
Yeah, that's right. I think I know you said you didn't say it right. I think you can say it however. I think I just said hey as though it was aggressive, but I think actually if it's the only word you can say, you'll say it how you want to say it, and that's fine. Yeah, very sensible decision.
I think maybe I'm learning Goose at the moment.
Oh wow.
So I only know a few words like hello, how are you, where is the toilet, like the standards that you learn in any language. So I think maybe if I was more adept at the language and understood the culture more, then I think maybe I'd be able to honk with my geese colleagues. Maybe I could call them friends at some point.
That's nice.
I don't know.
Can you a favourite word that you could help the listeners with if they want to learn to speak geese? Any particular geese words you like?
Yes. Actually, my favourite word in Goose is sunflower seed.
Ooh.
And it's just sort of a.
Wow, that was lovely. Thank you very much, and hopefully, listeners, when they need to tell some geese about sunflower seeds, then they'll be sorted. Thanks to you. That's fantastic. You know, thank you for taking both those admin questions very seriously. I really appreciate it. Wow, I mean, now we're in the big time. We've got to answer this question. This question is coming from Oskar. I know nothing else about Oskar. He hasn't said how old he is, where he's from in the world. He's just Oskar. He could be. I know he's not the small golden man that's handed out as a prize to famous actors, because he spelt Oscar with a K, and I think that's Oscar with a C. So I think he must be the other Oscar. Yeah, the other one.
He's the other one. Yeah,
he's the other one. Yeah.
Or is he the golden man in sort of hiding his identity? Because he's quite well known. You know.
Oh, I didn't think about that.
Very well known.
Yeah, that's a. Oh, well, maybe. Well, in which case, I mean, if it is that Oscar, you know, I don't know what his life is like, having to live in sort of cabinets in different famous people's houses. But I really am honoured that he got in touch with the show, and
big fan.
Yeah, very big fan. Very big fan. Wow. Well, I mean, he's got two questions for us, which I'm sure it sort of always makes more sense if we think of him as the small little golden man. And do you want them one at a time, both at once? Do you want them backwards? Do you want them said in a high pitched voice? How would you like these questions delivered to you?
I think.
Yeah. I think we'd like them delivered. We'd like them delivered in a high pitched voice, like you just said. Like that sounds really great.
I could also, after you deliver it, maybe try and translate some of it into Goose.
Okay, right.
For our Goose listeners.
So if I do it once all the way through in a high pitched voice, and they'll do it again in Goose. Is that the best?
You're going to try it in Goose?
Well, are you good? Because I don't really know Goose. So if you want to translate it in Goose,
Matthew can translate into Goose for you. Yeah,
so translate for the Goose listeners.
I'll read it all at once in a Am I alive? Because alive is a made-up word. What is normal fire red and very hot fire is blue, but blue is the cola that stands for the cold. There you go. Can you translate that for us?
We didn't hear it because it was too high for
your
microphone.
Oh my goodness. That's in which case this is going to be a problem if we're not able to. I might have to say it in a lower voice for the sake of the micro. I do apologise. If you don't mind translating it into a lower Goose voice, that would be... so all in one then is, am I alive? Because alive is a made-up word. And what is normal fire red and very hot fire is blue, but blue is the cola that stands for the cold.
Interesting.
Wow.
Just a quick translation. Again, it's my goose is rusty, so sorry to the goose listeners out there, but it's sort of it'll be.
Wow. Wow, that was amazing.
Like
that was amazing. Yeah.
I think I messed with the grammar there a little bit, but
Thank you for
they get
doing that. I really want this show to be as accessible to everyone as possible. So thank you. I really appreciate that. I suppose let's take these one at a time. I think, which probably makes sense. So the first one is am I alive? Because alive is a made up word. What do you think?
Now I've got a good answer for that, and it goes back to do you remember in our introduction there was one of our credentials is that we are the air conditioning noise.
Yes.
And I think one of the most appropriate answers I can give to the question, am I alive? Because alive is just a word, is
Wow, that's very meaningful.
Wow.
Yeah.
I think there's a lot in that, and I really think I hope that's helpful, Oskar. I hope that's helpful. That's just one person's perspective, but for me, I think that's the answer, really.
Yeah.
I
If I could give an alternative answer, I think it's quite it's a philosophical conundrum that Oscar put forth here, and I wouldn't expect anything less from the great golden statue himself. It comes to the root of how do we know things, that whole idea from those old philosophers, and I would argue that Oscar is completely right. How does he know that he's alive? How does he not know that he's scribbly or flabbergabber?
Wow, that is true.
You know?
That is very true. I mean, I would argue as well that all words are made up. So, I mean, really, am I hungry? Or is that just a made up word? There's am I gassy? Or is that just a made up word? There's a lot of things we could probably ask this about. And I think probably at all times, Oscar and indeed myself are alive, gassy, and hungry. And it's just that we don't have any other words for it.
Yeah, which I think...
words are cheap in a way. So my mime teacher used to say that words are cheap, and that what truly speaks to us is action.
Right.
Action and gesture
speak
to us. So yes, hungry is an important word, but eating is more important.
Can I check? Did they say that to you, or did they sort of do it now? Because I just sort of wondered if it seems a bit strange to tell you it's not very, like, words aren't very important, but then to say that in words.
Words, it's obviously it's a bit of a loop we've got going there, right? Which is the same loop that we've got going with am I hungry? Is that just a word? Well, yeah, you are. Hungry is just a word, and eating is the action that makes that word go away. But eating is also just a word. So then we're back to, am I eating? Am I hungry? Or is it just a word?
What we need to come back to is like you say, action. And we don't need to ask, are you alive? And this is going to be visuals, okay? If you could translate verbally, you need to ask, Oscar, are you...
Wow. I mean, it's also probably worth thinking, if Oscar is the small golden statue that's handed to people at awards, and he's not alive, he's a small statue.
But he was able to write a question.
That's true, which makes me think, maybe he is alive.
Maybe.
Wow.
It's either the statue is alive, or this isn't this isn't him,
Yeah,
which would be a real shame.
it would be a shame. But then we know it's the other Oscar, and that's good too. So
That's really
there's only two of
yeah.
them, I think.
Mm.
Wow. Well, thank you. That's a very deep answer for a very deep first question. And of course, Oscar then has followed that up with why is normal fire red and very hot fire is blue, but blue is the cola that stands for the cold?
It's a really good question. Oscar's he's a keen he's a deep thinker is
Really
what I'm
deep
getting.
thinker.
He's got a very sharp
Yes.
mind. He is a philosopher for our
Yes,
time,
absolutely.
and for the future as well.
Oscar, if you're out there, keep thinking and keep delving into the real questions. All right.
So did I hear you say normal fire?
Yes, he said normal. Yes, that's the correct. It's normal fire.
Normal.
Yeah.
So normal fire, I would have thought, is fire that's been started by a gnome.
Oh yes, absolutely, yeah.
So that's gnome derived fire. So any fire that's been started by a member of the gnome community. Now those fires do tend to be red, because they do tend to be red. Just because it matches their hats, you see. So it's like they've got little red hats. So when they start a fire, the fire just like reflects the colour from their hats. And he's right, scientifically, the blue fire is hotter than the red fire. And the blue fire, usually those have been started, they've been started by mermaids.
Right.
And that's why they're blue. It reflects the blue of the sea, the blue of the scales on their fishtails.
Yeah.
So it's actually to do with, yes, it's to do with science and temperature, but it's also to do with who started the fire. That's what I've been led to believe.
Wow.
Yeah. Now I would like to posit a question on this question. I very, very rightly so have never sort of put my finger in a fire.
Yes.
I've never felt fire. We just know that it's hot.
Yes.
And I wouldn't recommend that anyone does that. That being said, how do we know that blue fire isn't cold?
Wow. So do you think
sort
of cook food with extreme cold?
Yes. What if is temperature like time not cyclical? If something is so hot, can it be cold? And it's so cold, can it be hot? I put a piece of bread in my freezer and cranked it all the way. And then about 24 hours later, I had a perfectly toasted piece of bread.
Wow, that's amazing. Well, I wonder if it's a bit like some food. For example, if you got some soup and you make it as cold as you possibly can, maybe the soup's like, I hate this cold. I'm going to warm myself up. I'm so annoyed at this cold. I'm going to cook myself to a perfect temperature.
Well, there's a point where they call it the outrage point.
Right, yeah.
If something gets so cold that it's annoyed, then it's just like it outrages itself into being hot.
Right, that makes a lot of sense. I wish
does that make sense? It's an emotional
I really
reaction.
wish I could do that in the winter. I'd like to be able to do that.
Yes, well, it happens with people as well. People can become so cold, so hypothermic that they believe themselves to be hot.
Wow.
And so hot that they believe themselves to be cold. And that it goes down to a molecular level where the electrons, the protons, the neutrons, even the quarks.
Wow, even the quarks, right.
Even the quarks, in whatever position they may be, reject the current temperature and sort of choose their own. And they choose their own path in a way. And that's sort of beautiful.
That's amazing. That's incredible. I mean, I do also have to, I feel like Oskar says that blue is the colour that stands for the cold. I do also think blue, sometimes stands for blue tack, or for blueberries, which aren't cold. I mean, they can be. It's sort of, I think blue is quite a versatile colour. It sometimes likes to be standing for all sorts of things, and I don't think we should define it by its one quality.
Yeah.
No, I think a lot of colours get put in boxes like that, and like confined by the sort of stereotype of the colour. Oh, green, nature. Oh, red, angry, fire. It's like, what about a red, a beautiful red, calm little river?
Yeah.
Or a floating down. Why is a red river isn't necessarily angry
No.
or hot? It could be cool and
strawberry
relaxing,
flavoured.
but it just still might be red.
Yeah.
And strawberry flavoured, right?
Wow.
Like, really, let's start just how we started a revolution for the spring onions, opening it out to all seasons of the year. I think colours need to be emancipated. They need to be freed from their confines.
Wow.
Yeah.
And only we can help them. We can help them.
Yeah, like winter is a season associated with cold, but for example, the winter onion is actually bright glowing orange.
Yes, yeah, I loved what you did with that, actually, I have to say. Really brightens up the kitchen.
Yeah.
It's a shame it does taste so awful. But you can't have everything, I guess.
Unfortunately tastes like some of Katie's artwork, sort of lemony.
You meant to eat the artwork?
So the way we run it, obviously, if the artwork gets completely consumed, then it ceases to be there for other squirrel audiences. But what we do is a tasting
that's
session.
Lovely, yeah.
So you can come and taste the artwork. You go to like a wine and cheese tasting thing, or you try all the different, take a little sip of all the different juices at the juice bar. I don't know. But it's similar to that.
That's
principle.
lovely. How nice. You can come and just sort of eat the art. Lovely. Well, listen, you two, I mean, thank you so much. I hope Oskar, whether or not he is that Oskar or that Oskar, I hope he is very happy with those answers, because I think you really delved into those, and I don't think we could have had better experts on. So thank you very much. And I have to ask, it's been great having you on. What have you got coming up next? Are you travelling through any more time blips? Any more art exhibitions? What's next on your agenda?
We've got a time blip planned later today, actually, don't we? We're doing a show
in this time.
In this time, although what we'll do is it's more of a time blip, but it's going to take us like basically straight after we come off this call with you. We're going to do a gig in at London Bridge for Hoopla Improv. But that's at 7:15 p.m. But we'll go straight there after this.
We're gonna blip.
Yeah, we're just gonna blip across the afternoon and go straight to it. Just because this has been so energizing and fun, we want to ride that energy straight into the live gig. And that's a real thank you to you and to all your listeners for all their great questions, for all their interesting thoughts, for the philosophy that we've been able to discuss today. It's really energized us and it's really fueled us. So thank you.
Yeah, and we are getting the bus there, but I'm sure there's not going to be any problems with going back 500 years.
No.
We're just going to get the 87 straight there, and I think everything will be fine, probably.
Wow, good luck. Very good luck to you both. And I think that's a lovely way. If any listeners here are thinking, the afternoon ahead looks pretty dull, I hope they can blip through it as well. I think it's a really nice way to spend your time or not spend your time. I'm not sure how it works. But thank you so much. It's been brilliant having you on, and hopefully we'll see you and your geese friends soon.
Oh, thanks so much.
Thank you.
Who doesn't love bunnies?
Thanks so much to Katie and Matthew, aka Peasoup Comedy, for having time in between getting the wrong time travelling buses to answer Oskar's amazing questions. Oskar, I do hope you liked your answers, and if not, please put any complaints you have on the wrong bus, and then I'll never have to read them, and they'll bother someone 500 years ago instead. If you out there have a question that needs answering, or you just want to send in anything else at all, then please ask your mumblefuts, grown-ups, to help you email me at podcast@comedyclub4kids.co.uk. If those same grown-ups want to help support this show still happening, they can sign you up to the Linda edition for a small monthly fee via Apple Podcasts, Acast Plus, or patreon.com/Comedy Club for Kids. Come and see us live. All of our shows are at comedyclubforkids.co.uk, and do spread the word about this show if you like it. In fact, if you spread the word about this show really, really thinly, then it becomes the word. I think that's how you spread a word. Anyway, maybe I was using the wrong knife. I've been reading so many rabbit facts, listeners. Check this one out. This one's one of my favourites. Rabbit fact 34. Julius Caesar was actually a rabbit. Oh, amazing. Or this one. Rabbit fact 903. That white bit that you can see on top of mountains isn't snow, just lots of rabbits. They love sitting on tops of mountains. Wow, amazing facts. The only one I'm a bit worried about, listeners, with all these sort of very, very quiet but really huge rabbits here, is this one. Rabbit fact 70,002. The main predator of a giant rabbit is a giant eagle. They have talons that are 3 weeks long, and they can see in the day or night because they have fancy sunglasses. Wow, well, I'm hoping that's not going to affect me here. We don't really get eagles in this area, so hey, I'm sure it'll be fine. Unbell Eaglebull. Bye! You have been listening to Comedy Club for Kids presents. Radio nonsense! Radio nonsense! Radio nonsense! Radio nonsense! Radio nonsense! It's the end.